Hello, I'm Peter Armstrong, sitting in for Carol Off.
Good evening, I'm Chris Howden. This is As It Happens. Tonight.
Wallet, keys, vaccine passport. People in Quebec must now show proof of vaccination to do dozens of formerly run-of-the-mill activities, creating what our guest calls an ethical minefield.
Loved and lost. An Afghan Canadian who's been working to focus Ottawa's attention on the dangers facing Afghanistan's Hazara minority says some of his relatives made it out, but others have been impossible to reach.
Beside the top of the world, an Arctic researcher explains how he and his colleagues accidentally discovered what they believe is the northernmost island on Earth.
Choice words. As a strict law banning most abortions goes into effect in Texas, we revisit our conversation with a Dallas high school valedictorian who used her speech to denounce the bill.
Horns of a dilemma. A 66-million-year-old Triceratops fossil nicknamed Big John is up for private sale, and paleontologists like our guest are up in arms about what that means for her field.
And you must remember this. The Welsh flag is adorned with a proud red dragon, but an online petition insists it would be prouder if that dragon had male genitals. As it happens, the Wednesday edition, radio that's sure someone invited you to sign, you should probably check your junk mail. The race to leave Afghanistan has moved from the Kabul airport to the country's land borders with Pakistan and Iran. Hundreds of thousands have already crossed into the uncertainty of life as refugees. An unknown number of others are desperate to follow in their paths. Members of Ali Mirzad's family have joined that exodus. Mr. Mirzad is a senior advisor for Canadian Hazara Humanitarian Services, the group that works to help members of Afghanistan's Hazara minority, which suffered persecution the last time the Taliban were in power. We reached Ali Mirzad in Ottawa.
Mr. Mirzad, what's the latest you've heard from your relatives fleeing Afghanistan?
Well, my family, like so many other family members from our community here in Canada, the Hazara community, everyone is worried. Everyone's scared, frightened, tired, fatigued, physically, mentally, psychologically. I have many relatives. I have two maternal uncles. One of my uncle with his family, and my uncles are quite old, they're elderly. His son is married, so the whole family with his son's wife and daughter all tried to fled Kabul, obviously because now that the airport is closed and everyone has packed up and left. They went to the Pakistan border through Kandahar. And the journey from Kabul to Kandahar is in itself quite dangerous and perilous, with many checkpoints and Taliban looking for Hazaras. Because we have suffered genocide at the hands of the Taliban, and they have continued to persecute us. So my uncle and his family, when he made it to the border, on the Pakistan border in Kandahar, he was not allowed to go with his son, my cousin. But my cousin's wife and children, his mother, all of them managed to sneak in. And when my uncle and his son insisted, they took a beating. My uncle is severely injured. I haven't heard from them in 2 days. I'm not sure if they're okay, if they're not, where they are. When they called me very frantically, his mother from the other side of the Pakistani border, saying that he was injured and that they were going to try to bring him to a clinic. So that's the last news we have from my uncle. My other uncle, who is still in Kabul, is scared to even leave his house because now that the Americans have left, the Taliban have fully enforced security checkpoints everywhere, and people are just afraid to get out of their home.
I'm so sorry that you and your family have had to go through this. It sounds just terrifying. We spoke with somebody at the Spin Baldock border last week on this program who was saying that they're letting some through, but they're kind of holding them just past the border out of Afghanistan, but not letting them go all the way into Pakistan. Has your family been able, those that were able to get through, were they able to get through the border region and into Pakistan proper?
No. So the information you received is accurate. Even though they made it to the other side of the border on the Pakistani side, they're still in the middle of nowhere. They're not allowed to go further. And It's similar to the scene of the airport. So most of us are used or were used to see the scenes outside of the airport, people being there, standing there in those sewage water and being there by thousands. But what most people have not seen, or there was little coverage, is that the other side of the airport, those that managed to get in the airport, were on the airstrip, on the tarmac for weeks on end with no water, no nothing, under the scorching heat of the Kabul summer. And it's the same thing now for those who manage to go across the border. So they're basically in the middle of nowhere. It's a desolate desert. There's no medical supply, no food, no water. People who fled, when you're fleeing for your life, you're not really packing for a vacation. So people just fled with whatever they could, the one shirt or one shoes or whatever. So there's no supply, no food, and people are just kind of stuck there. And that's why there's just very little communication. My aunt, I was able to reach her on her phone that she had from Kabul, but most of the time it doesn't connect because of the phone number being an Afghan phone number.
It's been such a frantic time of trying to get people out, of trying to get information about who's where. It must just feel so disconnected to be all the way back here in Canada and playing broken telephone, just trying to get basic information. How are you feeling about the last 10 days and the situation with your family?
The most important word that I would use, or that would describe it best, is being helpless. That feeling that you can't do anything. You can only do so much by trying to call people here, trying to get answers from the government, trying to email organizations to ask for help. But, beyond that, there isn't much you can do. I don't have any more answers than what's available out there. And my family over there, like so many others, have heard Canada's commitment, bold commitment of evacuating or rescuing 20,000 people. And that has lit a hope in their heart. And it's with that hope that they managed to gather the courage to endeavor through that perilous journey from Kabul to Kandahar and to Pakistan. But now that they're there, they're just looking for answers on how they can get to Canada, how they can be rescued. And they're looking to us for answers, and we don't have any answers, unfortunately.
How much faith do they and how much faith do you have that the Canadian government will be able to help them?
Well, I have all the faith in the world in the spirit of Canadians. History has shown that whenever we were faced with challenges, that Canadians come together, whether it was with the Vietnam boat people or whether it was the Syrian crisis. With this new crisis in Afghanistan, I'm sure that we will all come together, and there's no shortage of that. We're seeing it already. But at a government level, so far the government has rescued people that worked with the Canadian government, and they have committed to rescue people that would flee the country. But at this moment, there is no details available on how to do that.
You had been trying to raise awareness about the dangers in Afghanistan for many months. What is it like to see the situation unfolding now and to hear Canada and other countries saying, okay, now we're going to take action?
Well, the attention that we're seeing from the Liberal government is welcomed, and we applaud and commend it. It's just that it needs to happen faster, and clarity needs to be brought as soon as possible on these programs, how it can be done. I'm hearing every time that there is a press conference or press release from the minister's office, Minister Mendocino, about the tremendous work that our Canadian men and women in uniform in our diplomatic corps is doing, and we commend all of that. We're not saying that they're not doing enough. We're just trying to highlight that it needs to happen a little bit faster because people's lives are literally at stake.
Indeed they are. This has been an unbelievably hard time for you and for your family. I do hope you get news soon from your uncles at the border and in Kabul as well. So thank you for making time to speak with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Peter.
Ali Mirzad is a senior advisor with the aid and advocacy group Canadian Hazara Humanitarian Services. He's in Ottawa.